My name's Mark Ellison, though that's not my real name. I'm 27 years old, and I work for a local delivery company in Portland, Oregon. I've been driving routes for about 3 years now. It's decent money, decent hours, but sometimes the night shifts take you to places you wish you'd never seen. This happened last year, on a cold February night. I had one last delivery to make. Right before midnight, the package wasn't big, maybe the size of a showbox, but the address was way out, near the old industrial district, the kind of area where half the buildings are condemned and the rest are forgotten. When I pulled up, the streetlights were dead. The address led me to a 3-story brick warehouse with no visible company name. The windows on the upper floors were covered from the inside, and the front door had a metal security gate half open, like someone had gone in recently. My GPS said, "You've arrived," but there wasn't another car or person in sight. I tried calling the listed number, no signal. I scanned the label again. It just said, "Deliver to, basement, use side entrance." That should have been my cue to leave, but I needed that delivery bonus. So I followed the narrow path around the building until I found a rusted door that looked like it hadn't been used in years. It opened with a loud metal groan. The air inside was freezing and smelled like wet concrete. My flashlight beam cut through thick dust and scattered debris. The stairs going down were steep and uneven. About halfway down, I heard a dull thud below me, not loud, but heavy, like someone dropping something soft on the floor. When I reached the bottom, I found a long basement hallway lined with identical metal doors. Most were locked, but one stood slightly ajar. The delivery slip didn't have a room number, just the basement note, so I figured that was it. Inside that room was a single wooden table, a chair, and a small box in the center with my name on it. Not the recipient's, mine. I froze. Nobody knew my full name from that delivery system. It wasn't on any of the dispatch forms. Then the light from my phone flickered, and something shifted in the corner. A shape darker than the room itself. It wasn't moving like a person, more like it was stretching along the wall, peeling upward. I dropped the box, backed out fast, and ran up the stairs as the air pressure seemed to change, heavy, like the building itself was breathing. When I got outside, the door slammed behind me. My van wouldn't start for almost a full minute. The moment it did, I drove until I saw city lights again. The next morning, I reported the address to dispatch. They said that building had been scheduled for demolition for over 8 years. No active clients, no records, nothing in their system for that address. A few days later, I found the same box sitting on my porch, no label this time. Just the words "delivery completed." That's where I'll stop my story. If you ever decide to feature this on your channel, thank you for giving it a voice. Not every delivery ends with a signature. Some never really end at all. My name's Jason Miller, but that's not my real name. I'm 31 years old and I live in Cleveland, Ohio. I work as a delivery driver for DoorDash. Been doing it for about 5 years now. Most nights are pretty routine. Food runs, late night orders, nothing out of the ordinary. But one night last November was different. It's the only time I've ever thought about quitting for good. It was around 10:30 p.m., my last delivery of the shift. A simple order, a double cheeseburger meal and a milkshake. The address led me to a small apartment building in a quiet, older neighborhood I didn't recognize. The map pin looked fine, so I followed it. The building looked half abandoned. The paint was peeling, windows cracked, and the parking lot was full of weeds. The lobby lights flickered weakly, humming like they were running off an old generator. Still, there were mailboxes and fresh tire marks outside, so I figured someone must still live there. The order said apartment 6A, 3rd floor. The elevator was broken, so I took the stairs. The air inside was damp and stale, with that heavy smell of mildew and old wood. My footsteps echoed in a way that made it sound like I wasn't the only one moving. When I reached the 3rd floor, I found 6A easily. It stood out. The door was freshly painted, cleaner than the others, with a brand new lock. I knocked once, no answer, knocked again. That's when I heard something on the other side, slow, dragging footsteps across the floor. Then a muffled voice, right next to the door, said, "Leave it there." So I set the bag down and turned to leave. But when I looked back one last time, I noticed the peephole was completely blacked out, not reflecting light at all, like it had been covered from the inside. Halfway down the stairs, my phone buzzed. The app said, "Thanks for the delivery," but the timestamp on the message was 5 minutes before I even arrived. When I got back to my car, the streetlight overhead flickered out. The delivery still hadn't marked as complete. When I opened the app again, the address pin had shifted. Now it pointed to an empty lot on the next block. No building number, nothing there. The next morning, I told another DoorDash driver what happened. He went pale and said, "You mean Ridge Avenue?" I nodded. He told me that building had burned down 2 years ago. The third floor, the one with apartment 6A, had collapsed completely. I drove back a few days later to check. The place was fenced off, boarded up, with condemned signs on the walls, but near the gate, I swear I could still smell fresh burgers and milkshake syrup, like someone had just eaten. That's where I'll end my story. If you ever share this on your channel, thank you for letting me tell it. Not every delivery goes to a living customer. Some addresses never really disappear. My name's Daniel Reyes, but that's not my real name. I'm 34 years old, from San Antonio, Texas, and I work for UPS. I've been driving routes for almost 7 years now, long enough to know every corner of my district, every business, every face. But there's one route I'll never forget, one that still shows up on the system, even though it shouldn't exist anymore. It started about 2 years ago, during a night shift in late October. I was doing overtime, covering a route for another driver. The deliveries were all routine: warehouses, small offices, auto parts stores. But just before midnight, one more address appeared on my scanner. No pickup note, no return label, just a single line of text. Delivery required, 12 a.m., Rest Haven Cemetery. At first, I thought it was a prank, but the label was printed with official routing data, same as any legit delivery. I figured maybe the cemetery had an office or maintenance shed. The package was small, about the size of a showbox, sealed tight. When I got there, the gate was unlocked, the streetlights barely reached inside, and fog hung low across the grass. The main path split into 3 directions, east, west, and one that led straight down the middle toward an old stone chapel. My scanner beeped, signaling I was approaching delivery destination. The screen glitched for a moment, then displayed recipient, lot for 7B. I parked by the curb and grabbed my flashlight. The fog got thicker the deeper I walked. My boots sank slightly into the damp soil. The graves were old, some names worn away completely. When I found the marker labeled for 7B, I stopped cold. The headstone had my last name carved into it. Same spelling, same middle initial. The date of death was blank. My scanner beeped again and said, "Delivery confirmed." The box in my hand felt lighter, like it was empty. I set it down, just to be done with it. But as I turned to leave, I heard a low thump behind me, like something shifting in the ground. I ran back to the truck. The scanner was still flashing, trying to send data, but it couldn't connect. When I finally got signal again, the delivery history showed that drop as incomplete. The next morning, I checked the route logs. There was no record of any package to that address. No tracking number, no signature, nothing. My supervisor said maybe the system glitched and reassigned a bad route ID. But for the next 3 Fridays in a row, the same address appeared on my list, always at midnight, always the same message: delivery required, Rest Haven Cemetery. I never took the route again after that. I asked to be transferred to daytime shifts. Even so, sometimes when I pass that part of town, I swear I see headlights parked by the cemetery gates. Same kind of brown ops truck I used to drive. That's where I'll end my story. If you decide to feature this on your channel, thank you for giving it a voice. Some deliveries don't have destinations. They just keep finding their way back to you. My name's Kevin Torres, though that's not my real name. I'm 29 years old, and I work part-time for Amazon Flex, doing late-night deliveries around Chicago. I usually take the evening routes, because the roads are quieter, and I get to finish before midnight. But there's one night I'll never forget, and it still keeps me up sometimes. It happened last April, on a Friday night. My shift was almost done, and I had one last package to drop off in a quiet neighborhood near Forest View. It was one of those areas where the houses are far apart, the streets are narrow, and half the streetlights don't even work. As I pulled up to the address, I noticed movement at the far end of the road, to people near a parked car. At first, I thought it was just an argument. Then one of them fell to the ground hard. That's when I realized something was wrong. The person standing was holding something shiny, a knife, I think. I froze, hands still on the steering wheel. My headlights caught his face just enough for me to see he was staring right at me. I didn't move. I didn't even breathe. My first instinct was to grab my phone and call 911. But instead, I just shifted to reverse, slowly, quietly, hoping he'd think I didn't see anything. As I backed up, I heard a faint voice coming from the ground. The person who had fallen. She was still alive. She was begging for help. But I didn't stop. I just kept driving. My heart was pounding, so loud that I couldn't hear anything else. I told myself it was none of my business, that someone else would call for help. When I got home, I couldn't shake the image from my head. I kept checking the local news, but there was nothing that night. Part of me hoped it wasn't real. Maybe I had just imagined it. But the next morning, while scrolling through X Twitter, I saw a trending post. Woman found dead near Forest View. Suspect still at large. There was a picture of the same street, the same car, the same time I was there. That's when everything inside me just sank. Since then, I can't sleep right. Every time I drive at night, I feel like someone's watching me from the back of the van. Sometimes when I stop at a light, I hear faint tapping on the door, like someone trying to get my attention. When I look, there's nobody there. Last week, I had a route that passed near Forest View again. I almost canceled it, but I didn't want to lose hours. When I dropped off a package there, I noticed a single white flower on the curb, right where I saw the car that night. I don't know if someone left it for her, or if it was meant for me to see. That's where I'll end my story. If you decide to share this on your channel, thank you for letting me tell it. Some things don't haunt you because you saw them. They haunt you because you didn't do anything when you could have.